This is TVN exclusive on Television Nigeria. Our guest on this program is Elder Nat Apir, a shift engineer, plant engineer, production manager, subject matter expert manufacturing, plant manager, national maintenance systems manager with Coca-Cola Bottling Company of Nigeria, a public affairs analyst and project management consultant, Elder Nat. Welcome to TVN exclusive.
Thank you very much for having me.
Thank you very much. So how are you enjoying the lockdown during the COVID pandemic?
Well, it's very inconveniencing, but we have to comply with the protocols as has been set out by the World Health Organization and the federal government and the state government. It's very, very inconveniencing because there are no palliatives. And so we're running out of what to eat tomorrow.
Yeah, that's
but that's all right.
So can we know
it's for our good, it's for our safety, it's for our well-being.
That's all right. Before we go into the rest of the palliatives and stuff, it's good to see you. You're looking very good.
Thank you very much.
Now tell us who you are.
Nat Apir, the Nat Apir, had worked with Coca-Cola in Nigeria, Nigerian Bottling Company. I started my working career with the company as a shift engineer. And from there, after hard work and due diligence, I was promoted to the position of a plant engineer. And my first plant operations was with the factory in Ibadan. I was a plant engineer in the Ibadan factory in 1996. And after another sterling performance, I was transferred to a Papa factory as a plant engineer. And I worked there for about a year plus. And I was then transferred to Ikeja as the plant engineer of the factory in Ikeja. And from there, I acted as a regional engineer for the Lagos division and was transferred again to Enugu as the plant engineer of the Enugu factory. And from there, again, we had the restructuring of the company system. And we went for interviews, and by the grace of God, I was successful and was appointed as a production manager of the Onitsha factory. From Onitsha, I was moved back to the head office to work with Mackenzie as a subject matter expert on manufacturing. And in between, while I was at the head office, I also worked with GrowthCon on total productive manufacturing as a subject matter expert. And the company graciously sent me to Europe, where I spent some time on trainings in sales and marketing. And as soon as I came back, I was posted to Kaduna as the plant manager and chief executive of the Kaduna factory. And we had a very good performance by the grace of God at the Kaduna factory. And I was promoted to the position of National Maintenance Systems Manager, meaning I was in charge of systems management for engineering, processes, and all that, and trainings and spare parts procurement. And then I retired from there voluntarily and went into private practice as a project management consultant.
The profiles that you have just unleashed here, you think the walls here can contain?
Yeah, the walls can contain, but then it's a small pond. But then we have to pay back to society and community. And that was why I got back to Benue to try and contribute in my own little way in the areas of project monitoring and evaluation, so that we can have a successful delivery of government projects without delays and without abandonment of projects. And I think to an extent we have made some positive impacts in that regard.
Thank you very much, Elder Nat. Talk about the systems engineering systems and process. Can you throw a little more light to those who don't understand what it means to study about systems? What are systems?
You're looking at pneumatics, you're looking at automation. Basically, these are things that have to go with it. And then you're looking at manufacturers' operating systems, maintenance schedules designed by the manufacturers so that you ensure that these are strictly complied with in order to enhance the lifespan of your equipment. In between, you are also planning and processing life cycle demands for your equipment, which is to say that you know that at some certain points you have to replace certain parts, you have to replace certain equipments. These are things that I was basically engaged in as the National Maintenance Systems Manager. Is automation, pneumatics, processes that enhance a seamless production operation on a production line.
Now tell us about transitional effect of being the systems manager at the Coca-Cola company and what it transmogrified into. Did it transmogrify into a lot of cash for the company?
Yes, like in total productive manufacturing, we look at systems improvements, we look at cost-saving measures, we look at creating integration between production and engineering and quality and sales. And that way we are able to say, look, we don't have to put on a production line where there is no demand, and this must have to come from the sales department. And we have to ensure that our equipment have the capability to produce quality products. And this is always assured by the quality department. And we have to make sure that our team members in production are well positioned to run these equipments and deliver the volumes that are needed by our internal customers, that's the sales department. So basically, we're looking at cost-saving measures. We're looking at production efficiencies. We're looking at improving productivity. We're looking at what we call system line efficiencies, SLEs. We're looking at SLU, system line utilization, which has to do with the fact that if you don't run, you are still losing. As in, if you don't run a production line, you're losing money because you've invested and depreciation is taking place on your equipment. So what to do? If where demand is dropping from the marketplace, you now come back to the drawing board and say, look, do I need this capacity? And once you do the analysis based on market demand, and you must factor in futuristic factors, growth in population, a particular demographic, will they still be demanding for a product? Where is the shift? So these are things that we look out for in total productive manufacturing and systems engineering and maintenance processes.
So apart from Coca-Cola that you managed as the litany of positions that you held while in there, if you're going to have to produce other products, the system works the same?
Well, management is management and production is production. It does not matter the brand. Once you are well trained and well equipped, it does not matter. We can produce anything. We can produce bread. We can produce pawpaw juice. We can produce mango juice. We can process sesame seeds for storage and for use in the manufacture of several other byproducts. I mean, the competences are there. So the thing is, I have experience in managing a cost center, the Kaduna factory, where I was responsible for profit and loss.
You made a lot of profit?
I made profit, lots of profit. I will not mention that.
In millions?
In millions, but I will not give you a figure. Now, as the plant manager of Kaduna factory, I was responsible for a supply of product to Abuja, Niger State, and Nasarawa State. Meaning that I'm also very well trained in supply chain and logistics. And because I have a background in manufacturing, Coca-Cola was gracious enough to send me to Lagos Business School, where I had my education in finance. And then they sent me back there again for another training in supply chain and logistics. So I'm very well equipped to handle the manufacturing process, whether it's from the finance side, or the supply chain and logistics side, or the manufacturing quality assurance processes side. And then the sales side, we have those competences.
All right. Elder Nat Apir, thank you very much for giving us a beautiful background about your career and the content that you're made of. It's important that the world knows that you have capacity in the first place. And then you had the necessary trainings, to have capacity in system management. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
But I want to also find out from you, as a management consultant, how do you read the management of the state government, by extension the federal government, in managing the COVID-19 pandemic that is ravaging the world today? How do you read it?
Well, we have huge gaps, both from the federal government down to the state government. The federal government has not provided for a lot of test sites for the citizens of this country. Now, we're a country of 200 million citizens, but so far we have been able to test only about 11,000 citizens out of the 200 million. And if you've been following the national NCDC, National Center for Disease Control report that they send out there through WhatsApp, through Facebook, through other mediums, you would have seen that the numbers of those that are infected has been growing on a daily basis. The numbers of those that are being managed and are stable is also growing. As at the last time I checked, which was yesterday or a day before yesterday, we had about 35 deaths recorded by the National Center for Disease Control. Now, what we need to do is to get mobile testing sites to the 35 or 36 states of this country. Right now, we only, the whole of the North Central, Northwest, Northeast send samples to Abuja. I think it's only Lagos that has the second facility. You cannot regionalize the siting of test centers, mobile test centers, for a pandemic that is ravaging at the speed of sound. We need to be prepared and be ready to tackle this as it is coming. At the moment, the federal government is held pants down. They do not have an answer to these issues. What we're doing is managing the situation by just announcing statistical data. Only Lagos and maybe Abuja have been managing this pandemic very well and effectively. I am not sure of what is happening in the other states, but I can tell you that in Benue State, it is the same story. Samples are taken and sent to Abuja. Samples are taken in Katsina and sent to Abuja. Samples are taken in Sokoto and sent to Abuja. By the time before these samples come back, maybe these guys would have died. Like the case of the doctor in Katsina State that came back from Lagos, was feeling sick, tired and weak. His samples were taken and sent to Abuja. Before the test results would get back, he had died. Now this is a challenge, which is why I say that the federal government is unprepared in handling this pandemic. And this is an emergency situation that we must, in my view, set aside bureaucracy and act swiftly to save human lives and reassure the citizens that the government is on top. But at the moment, it's a kick and start thing.
Any palliatives so far?
There are no palliatives. We have citizens being told to stay indoors. The government has not reached out to the citizens. Nothing has been provided. No money, no water, no food. Now I can tell you, the South African government has proposed an emergency fund of $26 billion to deal with the coronavirus pandemic. Now, $26 billion is 75% of Nigeria's 2020 budget. This is just to deal with the coronavirus pandemic. What has the Nigerian government done? They are telling us that they are still planning. They are telling us that palliatives will be released to the citizens. If you recall, last year, President Buhari, whilst inaugurating the retreat for his newly appointed ministers, stated that there are 100 million Nigerians living in poverty, in that the retreat should fashion out a strategy that will enable government to lift these 100 million Nigerians out of poverty over a 10-year period. The NSIP program, which is the poverty alleviation program of the government, had only 2.6 million Nigerians on her register. And this is the register that the federal government is claiming that they're using to dispense palliatives to the citizens. In a country of 200 million, you have captured only 2.6 million citizens.
In the second presidential address, he increased the numbers to another million.
To 3.6 million.
Altogether.
That is still grossly inadequate. Because it is the same president that told Nigerians that there are 100 million Nigerians living in poverty. Now, I was expecting that the federal government strategy will focus on at least reducing the 100 million Nigerians to about 50 million that will be able to access the palliatives. But this has not happened. In my local government, I don't know who has received any palliative. I've gone around, I've sent people to go find out how are we faring. Has anybody received this palliative? Nobody has come forward to say, yes, we're paid. My local government is Gwe East local government, and I stand to be corrected. So, the federal government does not have a coherent short-term and long-term strategic plan of dealing with this coronavirus pandemic. Hence, the citizens are left to their devices. There is no care. And you know very well that in this country, citizens pay 100% for their medical treatment and needs. They do not have health insurance that is functional. The only people that have access to national health insurance are people working in governments or in companies. And this is a negligible percentage of the Nigerian population. What about the average man, businessman in the informal sector, who used to work on Third Mainland Bridge, or Adeni Adele, or a towing streets, or a Wolowo Road, hawking his wares to earn a living and take care of his family? With this shutdown, how has he been taken care of? He has been left to his devices. You will agree that it has been in the news lately that hoodlums, quote unquote, have been invading residential estates in Lagos and Ogun State and robbing citizens. Why is that so? It is so because these are people that used to earn a living on the streets, hawking wares, the informal sector of the economy, which is the main engine room of the Nigerian economy, by way of employment, by way of GDP that is not captured. But this sector has been taking care of millions of Nigerian citizens.
What sector are you talking about now?
The informal sector.
The informal sector
Of the Nigerian economy.
Which is?
These are people that hawk goods on the streets. These are people that sell in small markets.
Microeconomics.
Exactly. They are not captured in our database. They are not what you call small-scale entrepreneurs. No, they are not, because there's no data for them. They move from where the traffic gridlock is to the next point, and so they are mobile. You see them on the streets in Lagos. What are we doing about that? Nothing.
We need to capture data for them.
Exactly.
Include them.
There's a massive absence of data. We cannot plan without an accurate, reliable, and trustworthy data.
Whose responsibility is it?
National Bureau of Statistics has a responsibility for generating a reliable and trustworthy data of all activities in this country, economical and non-economical. But of late, these things, the National Bureau of Statistics focuses only on major industries, oil sales, and employment in government institutions, and some major private manufacturing concerns. So, to summarize and answer your question, the federal government is not ready to deal with the coronavirus pandemic. For a country of 200 million testing only 11,000, and 11% of that 11,000 is found to have been infected. So if we test 2 million, and that means 22% of that will be infected.
That's all right. So let's know what the analysis around a population of 200 million people.
Yes.
With relationship to the testing of just 11,000 people. That becomes a very little fraction out of the 200
Yes.
that has been tested. Now, what could you say in clarity that would have led to that kind of a situation? You know, particularly with respect to the reagents, the laboratories. Is it very possible that while we have been able to arrive at just 11,000 people out of 200 million, what factors could have been responsible for that? Can you just explain?
There are no test sites and facilities. Like I mentioned.
What are facilities?
Only the National Center for Disease Control is testing in Abuja. You must have a standard laboratory.
What about reagents of those chemicals?
These are the issues we have.
Equipment.
Even the masks are not available. They have been mopped up. I was told by a friend that the St. Teresa's Hospital, they're looking for face masks. They don't have. They can't access it in the market. The federal government is not telling us whether they place an order for the import of this, either externally or internally. I understand the people in Aba are already producing face masks, and some local people here and there are doing that. But we need to harness this and put in one basket so that we're able to look at areas where the need is more and ship those things to those areas. So there are no enough test sites. There are no enough reagents. You cannot have or stock reagents without test sites. There are no face masks. There are no hand washing solutions.
And we don't manufacture them
And we
here.
do not have the technical manpower.
Do we manufacture?
They have not
this-
been trained.
Do we manufacture these things in Nigeria?
Some of
first
these
place?
things can be manufactured locally,
Yeah.
like the face mask. But the Nigerian government must show a willingness and a commitment to changing the paradigm.
You are a systems expert.
Yes.
You are a manager in a production line. You have a very tall CV. Now, if we had a factory to manufacture these masks, if they gave you the opportunity to head the department of productions generally, face masks, vaccines, equipment and stuff like that, what can you tell us about it? Will you actually handle it? I mean, what can you tell us
The
about it?
capacity is all over Nigeria. Vaccines take about 2 years to come out of the laboratory and to be certified for clinical trials. Any vaccine that we are told is just about 6 months and is already going to be subjected to clinical trials carries a lot of risks. Any scientist will tell you this. Any researcher will tell you this. Any medical person will tell you this. You know, so for vaccines, it's a very delicate line.
What about production?
But consumable items, like the face masks, the latex gloves, these things can be done in this country. And like I mentioned earlier, there is a lady in Benue State here that is already producing face masks. And the quality is good. What we need to do is to spread out and empower some of these local producers. We have them in Aba, we have them in Benue, we have them in Lagos. Empower them, which is what the American government did. You remember when this outbreak began to go out of control, they had to take in delivery of face masks and other PPE gadgets from Russia.
Yeah, sure.
And others were placed in China.
Yes.
And very recently, the Canadian Prime Minister reported that all the face masks and other PPE gadgets that were shipped from China to Canada were found to be substandard. So what we need to do is localize our production or manufacture of these consumables, the face masks, the latex gloves, and some of these hand washing detergents or lotions that we talk about. This can be done. But it goes to tell you that Nigeria's manufacturing base is very weak. A lot of factors mitigating against them. Power, road infrastructure, access to finance, overtaxation, multiple taxation. These are factors impacting negatively on medium, small-scale enterprises and entrepreneurs. So, we need to, after this pandemic, sit back as a people and as a country and review our processes. This is an emergency that has caught most advanced countries napping. The only reason we are having these low numbers of infections being reported is because our tests are not widespread. But even the 11,000 that was tested, 11% came back positive. Wow. That is huge.
Huge.
And so, we can manufacture some of these things in this country. We can. But the government needs to reorder our priorities.
Which means that there's going to be fear in the unknown.
Of course.
Particularly that we don't have the facilities, the infrastructure to deal
I
with
like
this.
to say that we need to begin to prepare very seriously for the unknown.
Yes.
Because it's going to hit us in quantum. If we have these tests widely covered or going around everywhere, it will be, you will see that the infection rate will be exponential.
Yeah.
Would have been exponential.
And the indicators for knowing exactly the measure to which this infection is going on is the testing.
Look, Lagos State is managing this pandemic very efficiently, very effectively.
All right.
But I'm not surprised because the commissioner has a solid background
Yes.
in things like this.
All right, okay. So, Elder Nat, we're going to take a short break right now.
Okay.
We're going to take a commercial break very quickly. And when we return, we're going to have Engineer Nat Apir talk to us about the post-COVID on the economy. Thank you very much for watching. We'll be right back.
I pledge to Nigeria, my country. So goes the opening lines of the 6-line National Pledge of Nigeria. Today, not a few, whether young or old, merely recite the National Pledge as a matter of routine or tradition, with their hearts being poles apart from the very spirit, creed, and essence of the pledge. Many simply do not understand its purport or feel the import of it, while many others choose to observe the pledge in breach only. Today we have decided to walk on the footpath of the very words of the National Pledge, keeping its vision and essence in our hearts, in our souls, and in our minds.
I pledge to Nigeria, my country,
To be faithful.
loyal and honest,
to serve Nigeria with all my strength,
to defend her unity,
and uphold her honor and glory.
So help me God. Nigeria, no doubt, will truly be the giant of Africa, developed and well rated in all indices, if her national pledge is treated with sacred obedience. It's on us, it's our duty and responsibility to make this country a better place. Let's live the pledge.
Welcome back. This is TVN exclusive on Television Nigeria. And we're still with Elder Nat Apir. Elder Nat Apir, we have spoken very well on many matters here, and as it relates with the COVID experience. We are in the experience of the COVID pandemic, and away from now, we are going to be having a post-COVID-19 pandemic experience. How does this experience reflect on the economy of Nigeria? Do we have hope? Are we going to survive it?
Hope. Hope. Without hope, mankind ceases to exist. So we must always have hope. As to whether we'll survive, we'll surely survive. But that is if we are able to put the right measures and take the necessary actions now. If we don't do that, it's going to take us a long time to recover. Recall that the manufacturing hub of Nigeria is between Lagos and Ogun State. Now, what we have is that the Nigerian economy is in a total lockdown mode as a result of this COVID virus pandemic. Now, as a manufacturing expert, it's going to take at least a month or 6 weeks for the manufacturing sector to retool their equipment and get them back into production operation to meet up with the demand that has been created as a result of the non-supply of products from the manufacturing sites into the market. Because what we are currently buying from the markets are goods that have been produced prior to the shutdown. Now, what do? Should we look at giving exemption to some of these key critical manufacturing companies so that we say, look, we have this in place, these checks and balances, this test in place, these systems in place. You can begin to go produce and build up stock. If we don't do that, the Nigerian economy is going to grind to a standstill. Because as we speak, there is a gap between supply and demand. And this gap is as a result of the non-operations of factories. So the government needs to. You cannot shut down the economy of a country like Nigeria with a 200 million population without a strategic plan of how to cover the gaps that are very, very obvious now when you start operations. So I am looking at the possibility whereby government look at certain industries, particularly that have to do with food, beverages, medicines, pharmaceuticals. You understand what I'm saying?
That's
Household
right.
goods,
Household goods,
detergent, stuff like that, toothpaste. We need to look at those areas because we're running out of supply at the moment because these industries are shut down. And if we do not begin to think along the lines of ensuring that our production processes are primed to start producing and having SKUs, which is stock-keeping units in their warehouses, there's going to be a massive problem.
Come back to Benue State. You're an indigenous of Benue State, am I correct?
Very well.
In your experience moving around with Coca-Cola Company as a spark engineer and stuff like that, did you work in Benue State?
Yeah, I did.
All right, so tell me something about, the management of Benue State in the first place.
Well, we have issues, basically. And I'd like to say that the Coca-Cola operations in Benue State was first started from where you have, they call it Plant A, which was bought over from a former Pepsi plant that was bought over from Gado Foods by Coca-Cola. Now we then leased another factory which used to be Ben Bottling. We leased the factory. As a matter of fact, I was the engineer that came and carried out an equipment state of health audit on those equipments and recommended that Coca-Cola should lease the factory. I still have the reports in my files. It was on the basis of that we leased that factory. Now, when the Benue State government wanted to dispose of that factory, Coca-Cola naturally ought to have been offered the right of first refusal. This was not done. Coca-Cola wanted to buy the place, but the Benue State government was unwilling to sell to Coca. They ended up selling to some people. And Coca-Cola had to move out of Benue. Then if you look at Benue breweries, it's the same. Nigerian breweries bought it. According to reports unconfirmed though, overtaxation, harassment by unregistered tax collectors, all manners of people stopping their trucks on the highways, demanding for settlement, all that.
What is the meaning of settlement?
Settlement, these people, these villagers, hoodlums, quote unquote, that put logs of woods on the highways claiming to be acting on the behalf of government and collecting taxes. So even where or when these haulers show them their papers that we have paid everything as far as taxation, road use taxes and everything is concerned, haulage taxes and everything, they will still ask them, that one is for government. Give us our own share.
And that's the meaning, that's the definition of the settlement.
Exactly. So they have to be settled. That government has been settled, but they have not been settled. Now, a combination of these factors led to the Benue economy collapsing. Benue, unfortunately, as an indigenous, I would say, we've not been able to manage our industries well because we appoint people based on political considerations, based on family lineages. We don't appoint people to manage our enterprises based on their competences. The first consideration is which political party do you belong to? Which family are you from? I'm not sure if Coca-Cola had employed this, that I would have been a plant manager, that I would have been a plant engineer in Ibadan, a plant engineer in Enugu, a plant engineer in Apapa and Ikeja. I would never have been a national maintenance systems manager as a minority from Benue. The key thing the company looks out for, competences, the right skill sets. But unfortunately, this permeates across all state governments, including the federal government.
So are you saying competence on the part of government to manage the state resources?
Of course, it's not there, because if they have the right competences, they will not appoint politicians to manage companies that demand that certain things have to be met and done before you begin to look at profit.
What is the government of Benue State doing that needs to be done differently? Please, your advice on that, sir.
The first thing to do is carry out a comprehensive audit of all the moribund industries. Be honest about it. When we talk about revamping Taraku, what is the state of Taraku? How much do we need to pump into Taraku to get it up and running? We don't know. Because there is no equipment state of health audit, there is no financial audit to establish the indebtedness of the company, to establish the state of health of the equipment, whether they are in a state to continue to produce for the next 6 months, 1 year, 2 years, 3 years, 4 years, 5 years for any investor to recoup his money. These things are not there. What is happening in one mango and tomato juice plant? We don't know. This equipment in one in a tomato, mango and juice factory were manufactured in 2006. 2006 to date is about 14 years, meaning that they are already obsolete without this equipment being installed. What do we need to do? Send in experts to go and audit the state of health of this equipment, look at what needs to be done, talk with the original equipment manufacturers, OEM, have their views, Because if you start that now, a 14-year-old machine, where are you going to get the parts from? These are going to be specially produced and ordered and produced spare parts, which means the cost is going to go up. So what do we do with the Kogen cattle ranch? Audit the place. We have the challenge of Fulanis invading lands and farming lands and communities and taking over farmlands and killing people and all that. Yet we have a Kogen. What is